A private company once ruled millions of people. It had its own army. It collected taxes. It negotiated treaties, overthrew rulers, and controlled entire provinces. This was not a nation-state. It was a corporation. Chartered in London, funded by investors, and driven by profit, the East India Company became one of the most powerful political forces in history. This is the story of the company that ruled half the world. Chapter 1. When an empire weakens. In 1707, Aurangzeb died. At the time of his death, the Mughal Empire stretched across most of the Indian subcontinent. It was vast, wealthy, and culturally influential, but it was also exhausted. Decades of military campaigns had drained the imperial treasury. Continuous warfare strained logistics and fractured loyalty among regional elites. After Aurangzeb's death, succession struggles further weakened central authority. Provincial governors, known as Nawabs, began asserting independence. Regional powers such as the Marathas expanded their influence. India did not collapse, but it fragmented. In this landscape of political competition and instability, foreign trading companies operated along the coast. They had originally arrived for spices, textiles, and trade. Their settlements were commercial outposts, factories, warehouses, fortified ports. But instability created opportunity. And one company, operating under a royal charter from Britain, began transforming from merchant enterprise into something far more ambitious. Chapter 2. Building a corporate army. The East India Company did not arrive in India intending to rule it. Founded in 1600, it began as a joint stock trading organization. Its goal was profit through commerce: spices, silk, cotton, tea. To protect its warehouses and ships, it maintained small defensive forces. But as political instability grew during the 18th century, defense became expansion. Protection required soldiers. Soldiers required structure. Gradually, the company built a permanent army. Most of its troops were Indian recruits, known as sepoys. They were trained in European drill formations, armed with muskets, and led by British officers. By the mid-1700s, the company's private army was no longer a minor defensive force. It was a disciplined military machine. The empire it would create would be built largely by the very people it would later rule. Chapter 3. The Power of Money. The company's greatest weapon was not its soldiers, it was its structure. As a joint stock corporation, it could raise capital from private investors in Britain. It could borrow funds, issue shares, and spread financial risk across shareholders. Losses in one region could be absorbed by profits elsewhere. Regional Indian rulers relied primarily on agricultural revenue and local taxation. If war disrupted harvests, funding collapsed. The company, by contrast, had access to global credit networks. War became not just a military strategy, but a financial calculation. Campaigns could be sustained through borrowing. Losses could be refinanced. Armies could be paid even during long conflicts. For the first time in history, a corporation wielded the financial infrastructure of a state, and it learned how to use it. Chapter 4. Global Corporate Warfare. The company's first major military contests in India were not against Indian rulers, but against another corporation. Its French rival, the French East India Company, competed for influence in southern India. During broader global conflicts between Britain and France, their companies fought proxy wars across the subcontinent. These confrontations became known as the Carnatic Wars. These wars reshaped the regional balance of power. They also elevated a young company officer whose ambitions would change history. Robert Clive. Clive demonstrated that military victories combined with political alliances could produce immense leverage. Influence could be purchased, negotiated, or forced. Corporate warfare was no longer about defending trade. It was about controlling territory. Chapter 5. The Crisis in Bengal. By the mid-18th century, Bengal was one of the richest regions in the world. Its fertile lands produced rice and textiles that fueled global trade. Its ports connected to international markets. Its treasury was strong. In 1756, Bengal's ruler, known as the Nawab, attacked the company's settlement in Calcutta, citing unauthorized fortifications and political interference. The company responded decisively. Robert Clive returned with a relatively small but disciplined force. He retook Calcutta and began secret negotiations with dissatisfied commanders within the Nawab's court. Money changed hands. Promises were made. A confrontation became inevitable. Chapter 6. The Battle of Plassey. In 1757, approximately 3,000 company troops faced a Bengal army estimated at nearly 60,000. On paper, the outcome seemed obvious, but warfare is not decided by numbers alone. Several key commanders within the Nawab's forces had already agreed not to fully support him. When the battle began near the village of Plassey, hesitation and betrayal fractured Bengal's resistance. The Nawab was defeated. A new ruler, favorable to company interests, was installed. The Battle of Plassey was less a traditional battle than a corporate takeover executed through military pressure and political manipulation. In a single campaign, a private company had secured control over one of the wealthiest provinces in the world. Chapter 7. A province for profit. The company did not immediately annex Bengal as a formal colony. Instead, it pursued something more efficient. In 1765, it obtained the right to collect revenue, known as the Divani, from the Mughal emperor. This meant the company controlled taxation and financial administration while leaving nominal local rulers in place. A private corporation now managed the revenue of more than 30 million people. Taxes funded its army. Revenue paid dividends to shareholders in London. The line between business and government had vanished. The company was no longer simply trading within India, it was governing it. Chapter 8. Profit and Consequences. Corporate rule prioritized revenue. Land taxes increased. Traditional economic structures were disrupted. Local elites were integrated into company administration, but ultimate authority rested with profit-driven officials. In 1770, Bengal experienced a catastrophic famine. Crop failures combined with heavy taxation and rigid revenue demands contributed to widespread devastation. Millions died. Debate continues among historians regarding the precise causes and scale of responsibility, but criticism of company governance intensified, not only in India but in Britain. Reports of corruption, exploitation, and mismanagement circulated widely. Company officials were accused of enriching themselves through private trade and bribes. A corporation ruling millions was now under scrutiny. The British Parliament began to intervene, passing regulatory acts to supervise company administration. The experiment of corporate sovereignty was proving unstable. Within a decade, the East India Company had transformed from a trading enterprise into a territorial power, from merchants into rulers. Bengal was only the beginning. Over the following decades, the company expanded its control across much of the Indian subcontinent. Eventually, after the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the British Crown dissolved company rule and assumed direct control. But the legacy remained. A private corporation had demonstrated that profit, military power, and financial leverage could build an empire. Once a company learns it can rule, it rarely stops. If you want more stories about power, control, and the systems that shape the modern world, subscribe to Architects of Power. Because history isn't just about nations. Sometimes it's about the corporations that acted like them.